Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, where we let the inner warrior shine in their light. Today, I have Morgan Sherwood. She is an NLP coach. She's also a brand reconstructor, but she's also a mother and a wife, and also a colleague. So I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Your screen says Austin, but you're
Oh,
Morgan.
yeah,
So,
I think it's
yeah.
because I had to jump back in.
Yeah, no, I said Austin before, but I just want to make sure the audience doesn't think that I'm crazy calling you Morgan if the name on the front is Austin. So I appreciate your time today, and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
for having me.
I know that part of your story has been kind of health related.
Mhm.
Had some roller coaster issues with your health, but I kind of want to jump back earlier. Growing
Yeah,
up, did you grow up you're in Nebraska right now, correct?
yes. Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Did you grow up in Nebraska or did you grow up
Yeah,
elsewhere?
so I've lived here since I was 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So basically, yeah.
So I'm also a Midwestern. I grew up in Iowa, so practically neighbors.
Yep.
Um, what was life like growing up in Nebraska?
In some ways it was peaceful, in other ways it was very chaotic. I had a very chaotic childhood, so
And kind of describe some of that for me.
um a lot of generational trauma. One of my first memories is being about 2 or 3 and my mom in the kitchen on the landline phone hanging on the wall, crying, begging her mom just to love her.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of just set the path for the rest of us. A lot, a lot of heartache, a lot of trauma, a
How
lot of
many
mental illness. So,
how many siblings?
so I, this is where it gets complicated already. Technically, I have 2 other siblings. My sister got pregnant young and then got into drugs, and the relationship with her and my parents was toxic as well. Her kids ended up getting taken away. She lost custody and my parents adopted all of her kids. So then they became my siblings. So I just say I have 8, but
Wow.
that's where we're
How
at.
how
So
old
she
was
had
your
5
sister?
kids.
What she had 5 kids. By the age of what? How old was she?
Oh gosh, she had her first, she got pregnant at 17, had our oldest at 18. And then it was kind of just bam, 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 bam. So
Wow. So when we grow up in a toxic environment, we do one of two things or a combination of both. We try to escape from that
oh
by
yeah,
turning to academics, or we try to escape from that by turning to drugs and alcohol and sex. Which path did you choose?
drug, alcohol, and sex. Yeah.
Okay.
I
And at what age?
I was 12 when I had my first drink and I loved it. It was like I instantly fell in love. I loved the taste. I loved the way it made me feel. I loved being drunk. I loved everything about being drunk. So I always made sure to like get obliterated. Like I could never get enough. So it was an instant love connection for me and it was a major out for me. I would go to school. I'd shotgun a beer before going to school. I'd go to school drunk. Since I that started about 13, going to school drunk and
So
stuff.
how
But
does a 12 and 13-year-old get access to enough alcohol to start being drunk?
well, there's a 7-year age gap between me and my sister. So any of her friends, I was always around her and her friends. So any of her friends, and my mom would buy it for us.
Wow.
So yeah. And our family, it wasn't odd for the kids to drink. It was normal.
Hmm.
They would like my mom and dad didn't drink a lot in front of us, but when they did drink, they would go like all out, and the kids were allowed to drink with the adults, that kind of thing.
Sounds
So
very Midwestern.
yes,
I'm
it's
having
very
flashbacks
Midwestern.
myself, right?
Yeah.
Life on the farm.
And basically it was as long as you didn't drink and drive, they didn't care.
Okay.
So
Again, very Midwestern. I'd rather,
yes. Yeah.
my dad always said, I'd rather have you guys drink at home than drink and drive.
Yeah. That
So
was our rule. Like drink as much as you want here. And if you drink and drive, then you're screwed. Like,
Which is interesting because my dad, slightly different philosophy from yours. My dad was like, find out your limit and then stay one below that.
oh
And
wow.
then he would also, because the key to the liquor cabinet was always available and we knew where it was, it made us less desirable to go do it with our friends who were doing it sneaking out,
Yeah.
because it's like, well, shit, I can get that at home. So what's the big deal? You
Right.
know?
Yeah. Like,
So,
I'm
so
not
it
gonna
kind of
sneak in the
had,
house.
yeah.
But my
So
house
it
was
kind of,
always the hangout house because you could drink there. Like,
yeah.
my parents didn't. My parents would let any of us kids at any given point drink. So
Yeah, my dad was making sure it was only his children, but yes,
yeah.
it was, but I totally understand that. So you started at age 12, 13. How long did that continue to be your refuge?
Till I was 17.
Okay. So almost all the way through high school.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then what happened to snap that around?
So then I got into a really toxic relationship at about 16. Um, he was not good news, but I knew he wasn't. I'm a very intuitive person, but I wanted to piss my parents off.
Mm.
And he instantly gave me bad advice, but I knew that he was that bad boy that would just get under their skin. And so I bit and I paid the price. And it actually took me getting in trouble with the law to have a wake up call. Um, it was my rock bottom at the time. I mean, really was. I knew that I was either going to go down the same road that my sister went down, and that is very dark and lonely and scary, or I could just get my shit together and own my stuff and work on healing. And I think that's really, I didn't know it at the time, but that's when my healing journey kind of started. So,
Which is, when we're in generational trauma, and where that's the only role model we know,
mhm.
stepping into healing is always challenging and tough
Oh,
anyway.
it's messy and hard.
But when your role model is only toxic,
Yeah.
negative, generational stuff, that makes it even harder. So did you have someone you could turn to help, or did you just dig deep
I was just
and
kind of me winging it. I had mentors along the way that like almost kind of were just like placed there to make sure I stayed on track, kind of. It was, looking back now, I'm like, that was divine intervention at its finest. Like, um, I did have some people, like I knew what I wanted to be. I knew where I wanted to go. I got the opportunity to work in politics for a little bit, and I worked for a senator and his family, and they sat me and my cousin down and they were like, this is how you basically do life, and we'll help you guys figure it out along the way. And if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would be as hungry as I am now and know that there's so much more out there.
hmm,
So
which is an amazing that it was a politician who had that
yeah.
impact.
Oh yeah, he
That's,
was good shit. Like, he was not what you see in politics.
yeah, which is probably why he's probably still not in
Not the
politics.
senator.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't fit the mold. Wanted to
No.
actually help.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you graduated high school and you had this opportunity, what did your dynamics with your family, from the
Ugh.
free party
So
to,
it was hard for me to leave. I had to make a choice. At that time, my mom had checked out. She was severely depressed. Um, we didn't really know where my sister was off and on, because she would get clean and then relapse, get clean and relapse. Again, it was a mother-daughter toxic relationship, and some of the things that were happening between them would drive my sister into a relapse. Um, and so she was just kind of gone. I totally lost my train of thought for a second.
right, you
What was the
were you
question?
were the you were the dynamics with your family between,
Oh,
the
yes,
party
that's
you
right.
and,
So So then I took on that mother role. And when I graduated high school, I graduated with a 1.36. I literally grew up feeling like I was the stupidest kid alive. Like I was made to feel small so that I didn't, that was their way of keeping me safe, I think. Um, and in that, I took on the parent role. I was my parents' parent. I was my siblings' parent. Um, any big life things happening, my siblings, it's us. We're a tribe, and I couldn't leave them knowing that they weren't safe. And so
Mm,
it was really hard for me. Like once I graduated, I was like, oh my God, I'm free. But then it was like, oh my God, all these kids still have to survive this. And so it was really hard to leave. But I did it. At 18, I went and worked for the club campaign. I came home. There was still a lot of codependency. Um, the first time I left, my mom called me my first day of work and was like, how dare you leave me to do this by myself? Like, she was just so depressed and struggling. And my dad checked out. He used work to cope through all of this stuff. And there was so much screaming and stuff that, like, I don't fault her now. I was angry with her before, but I don't fault her for the things that happened because she was in survive mode. And so it was very hard to leave home. Um, so I came back at 19 again, well, between 18 and 19. And it was me coming home on weekends, taking care of kids, shuffling where I could. And then I decided I was going to go see my aunt in Washington and live with her for a little bit. And I just packed up my car and left. Like, no plan, never had done that before, never did anything like that on my own. Left Nebraska. And I think that's where, like, the love of the beach came from, because she grabbed me, she hugged me, and we went to the beach. And, like, it was a pivotal moment in my healing journey, looking back. So it kind of broke that codependency, and, like, my family just had to figure their shit out because I wasn't there. And
mhm.
so it was a very pivotal moment for me. So leaving home was so hard.
Did your aunt and was this your mom's sister or
My
your dad's sister?
mom's it's my mom's like, she's not really her sister, like, she's like a sister, but it's her cousin, but they grew up as sisters kind of
Okay,
situation. So
got it.
yeah,
I was gonna ask you how their dynamic changed when you left.
they were so close. It didn't affect them at all, really. It's still that same toxicity in the family. So
Yeah. Well, when you said sister, I was just wondering if it were
yeah,
true sisters. I was just wondering,
yeah.
would your mom have blamed her for taking her
If it was
safety
her
more?
actual sister, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you? Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did you stay with your aunt?
So I think I made it, like, I think I lasted 6 months. I moved to Newport News, Virginia, and they were just like, I'm used to everybody walking around waving, saying hi. You look at somebody the wrong way and they're flipping you off.
Yeah.
I got very, very homesick. I had ended up getting in a car accident. So I totaled my car and I was like, okay, I just need to go. I just need to go home and reset. And, even though home was chaos, to me, it was still safe. And
Right.
so I came
That's
home.
what you knew.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
We
came
we put
home.
ourselves in survival mode because it's what we know. And even though it's not good for us, we're comfortable in it because we
Yes.
know how to handle it.
Yes. Chaos is comfortable. Like, in the
Yeah,
past, chaos has been
right.
comfortable.
Which
So,
is because sometimes peace is uncomfortable when you've been in
oh,
chaos
yeah.
for
Like,
so
if you
long.
come from generational trauma, if you come from a very traumatic childhood, when things are calm, you're waiting for the sky to fall. Like, you're just like,
Right,
okay, so what's wrong? This can't be
right.
good. And so then you almost, like, you sabotage it and you create chaos because you're used to chaos. And it's that cycle until you decide to step out of it.
So how long were you home this second time?
So I was home, I think 3 months. And then I went and moved in with my best friend and I started college the next day. Like, and I moved into I lived with my friend for about a month. And then that January I started college. I like the night before I signed up for classes, I was like, I'm just gonna go to college. Like, I don't know what else to do, and I don't want to be at home. And so I moved into the dorms the next day, and they got me all situated, and I did that.
It's interesting. We grow up in chaos, so we love the chaos because it's comfortable. We try to fight our way out of it because we know it's toxic.
Yeah,
We're not comfortable in the peace, so we go back to the chaos. But
yeah,
once we're there, our intuitive nature just says it's
get
not
out.
right. So get like,
Yeah,
and the time periods become shorter and shorter and
yes,
shorter to which you tolerate that.
yeah. And oh my
And
gosh, I mean, and when I would be back home, it's just screaming matches at each other, up in each other's faces, like just gnawing at each other.
yeah, and when we're away from it, we know
It's
that it's
like,
going on, but we can hang up the phone and it's
yeah,
no longer in our face. But when you're there, it's
it's
in your
all the time.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you study in college?
So I was going into early education. I
Oh.
wanted to get my cosmetology degree, but my parents would not sign for my FAFSA because they told me it wasn't a real job. And I
Hmm.
had to have at least 1 year of school, they said. So that's what I did. Signed up for class in a day and I went for early education. So
Of all the classes that you could take to get your
it was
education.
just, to me, it was safe because I knew, like, I've raised all these kids. I know how to take care of kids. I've done the nanny thing. I'll just go into early education
And how long did you stick with that?
until May. I signed up in January and I lasted till May.
Yeah.
I had actually met my husband during that time.
Okay.
Um, so I had been through a lot of toxic relationships, cycles continuing. Um, about So when I had first came back home, I had jumped back into a toxic relationship that I left previously from moving to Washington. I jumped back into that. Um, and then I got back out of it. And then I stayed like single and I was like not looking for anybody or anything. I'm like, I'm going to work on me and only me. And then I met my husband.
Mhm.
He was actually my resident advisor. So,
Oh,
so we
okay.
have a fun story. Yeah. Started out friends and then it just kind of took off. And from we were in a co-ed dorm, so we pretty much like lived together the whole time. I was always at his
Hmm.
place or he was always at my place. And so then when summer came, we weren't together, like we weren't living together, and we're like, this is just stupid, we should just live together. So within 6 months of like dating or meeting each other, starting to date, moving in together, that June I found out I was pregnant.
Hmm.
And the rest was history. Like it was, yeah,
How long you been together now?
13 years. We've been together 13 years. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
And you've told me that he is your rock and
Oh
your
yeah. He is without a
so
doubt. I didn't ever want to be married until I met Austin. I didn't believe in the concept of marriage. I hated everything about it. And then I didn't believe in soulmates. I thought that was a load of bullshit. Um, and then I met Austin, and the first day I met him, I looked at my best friend and I was like, if there's somebody I could ever marry, it would be that guy. And I just knew, like, and she's like, what the hell? Like, she's known me since preschool. Like, and she's like, yeah, okay, you're like way out of there right now. Like, so we just
that's
laughed it
hilarious.
off and then, yeah.
It's funny because I'm um thinking back to my early college days, and we used to joke because I'm considerably older than you, and we could used to get away with this stuff. But um, we used to joke that the guys went to school to get their bachelor's degrees, and the girls went to school to get their MRS degrees.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
here
that's,
you went, got
yep.
your MRS, and
I did.
and you did. So now you're starting to heal. you're starting
Yeah.
to go on this journey. You've met your husband, which is become your rock. So I
Yeah.
imagine your healing started to go even deeper.
Oh yeah. Like with it, like, so the first month of meeting Austin is when I really, really started diving in. I had been in counseling for a while by this point. About so I've been in counseling about 8 months at this point, I think. Starting to kind of learn about boundaries, but they still scared the living hell out of me. Like I would never, like, I had no backbone back then, none. People could walk all over me and I would still make an excuse for them. But I was still getting stronger at that point.
So I'm trying to picture the dynamic because Austin had to be pretty strong to stay with
Oh my God, I don't know how that guy
situation.
has not left me because of my family. Honestly, and I've said that to him, and he's like, "It's not you. Like you're not you're not broken pieces. You're not damaged goods. Like it's just your
Right.
environment, you know." And he has very strong boundaries with my family. And I mean, Austin and I have very similar stories. Very traumatic childhood. He helped raise his siblings as well. So we connected in that way instantly. Um, so yeah, I don't,
So
it's so crazy saying it out loud.
but you're in the middle of this healing chaos,
Yeah.
and now you're pregnant.
hmm
How
And
did
so it was a lot of, like, with my family, it was a lot of like manipulation. Um, if you do this for us, we'll do this for you. We'll take care of you guys. Um, my parents pretty much bought everything for our son. Like my mom went and bought obscene amount of clothes for him. Like I'm talking totes and totes and totes. I mean, he could wear an outfit every day and he never went through all of his clothes. Like a new outfit every day, 3 times a day. I mean, just would fill things up, but then that was used against you. It was leverage. I did this for
Mm,
you. So now you have to take care of your siblings for me, or I will help you guys out because we know you're in a financial situation, but you're going to do this for me. And if you don't, then we're going to belittle you at all costs and make you feel small. And it
mm,
was a lot of that. There was one time, so I had just had my son. He was a month old, and my mom had called me a bitch because she had just got done being sick. All of my siblings were throwing up sick. My dad was sick, throwing up, and he had to go to the ER. And I said I couldn't come home and help because my son is so new. And she called me a bitch.
wow.
So it was a lot of that kind of toxic, like, I just wanted mom to love me at this point. Why doesn't she love me? If I do all the right things, will she love me? That kind of,
So um I'm kind
especially
of
having your own kid. Like,
yeah,
you just want your mom there.
right. You want her to help you with your child, not have to help with
Yeah.
her. I'm trying to piece your dynamics because you had all this chaos, you have
hmm
this healing, you have this journey with your new husband.
Yeah.
How far into that did you then become ill?
So it was a year after having my son.
Okay.
He had, it was a week after his first birthday, I had a stroke. And so I kind of, and then from there it was game on. So,
So kind of tell us that journey, the stroke and how you,
so at 21 years old, we were just getting back from my cousin's son's birthday party. He was just a couple months older than my son. So we were just got back from his birthday party, and on the way home, I had this raging headache all day. And we had gotten into a big family fight for beforehand. So I've chalked it up to that. It's probably stress related, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And we were out kind of in the middle of nowhere, small town USA. And I finally told my husband, I'm like, something's wrong. And like, because this whole time I was trying to form words, but they weren't coming out. And I could just get out, something's wrong. And like, then I wasn't making much sense. So he called my dad And my dad was like, call 911. My dad is a physician's assistant. He's like, call 911 and get an ambulance there, basically. And so we called 911. The ambulance came, and I remember, to me, I was like normal, like everything seemed normal. I just had this really excruciating headache at the time. And then he was like, does she always slur her words? He was asking me like my date of birth and stuff. And I'm like, what is he talking about? Sorry, my dog is going crazy right
No, you're right.
now. So that's when I was like, okay, something is wrong. And they put me on oxygen. They got me to the biggest hospital close by. And then it was months of rehabilitation.
So did you lose,
It was all left side.
okay.
So weakness in my, I have a lab and he's like nudging me and stuff.
It's fine.
So,
You go ahead and pet him. It's a family show.
so it was all left side affected, and my speech, my memory, and I had to relearn how to walk and talk. The first week, like I knew Austin. I knew he was safe. The rest of the people around me, I didn't, like I knew them, but I didn't know how I knew them.
Hmm.
Like I recognized Austin. I knew that he was okay. Like I was safe with him. The rest of the people, I was like, I know I should know these people, but it was a very scary experience.
And how long did you stay in that condition?
So I think I was in inpatient rehab for about a month. The talking came back. It took some time, but it came back pretty rapidly for a stroke patient. Took about, I fully had my sentences and stuff in about 3 months.
Hmm.
So I did inpatient for about a month, and then it was about 6 months of outpatient rehab.
And you're fully recovered today?
Yep, no residual. So,
Good. Congratulations. But that wasn't the only battle that you since
no,
had to face, right?
no. So I have a lot of autoimmune issues, including like autoimmune inflammation, the lupus clotting disorder, just a lot of autoimmune things and it kind of was like the stroke happened, and then it was just game on from there. From then to until about a year ago is when like it would be just a roller coaster of just chronic pain, chronic inflammation, loss of steroids. The only thing that my body would respond to is steroids. And so the chronic use of steroids, degenerative arthritis, and all of those other things. So it's like a wildfire at this point. And so then I was like, okay, this is enough. I got to get a handle on this. Not like medicine here does not fix. It does not heal. It just masks. It like slap a Band-Aid and pretend it's not happening. And I couldn't pretend anymore. I got to the point where I didn't want to die, but my body was getting tired, and I was tired of hanging on.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, we got to do something different. And then that's led me here.
Which is a testament to your husband to like hang in there with you, because I've known enough people who marriages, fall apart
Oh yeah.
when one.
And I even told him, I'm like, I'm giving you an out. Like, you did not sign up for this. I don't expect you to stay by my side through all of this. There was at one point I had lost sensation from the waist down. He had to take care of me. He had to help me go to the bathroom. He painted my toes for me. Like, he did all the things, and he never once complained. Not once did he ever complain. And I would tell him, you did not sign up for this. At any given point, if you want out, I understand. And on top of that, he's also dealing with my family's bullshit and me trying to heal through that. And he was like, no, like I fell in love with you. This is part of our journey. Like, so it was, yeah, I don't know what I would do without him.
And I love the love and strength that he shows to give you the grace to have those moments and then, stay there anyway.
Yeah.
Very admirable and a loving thing to do. Um,
Oh yeah.
so kudos to Austin.
Yeah.
So take me to the healing now.
So I had been at this point, I had been in and out of therapy. I would only get so far. It's like those, you get to a door and you're not ready to pass that door, so you pull back. I was just constantly hitting that door and just scared to go through the freaking door, really.
Mhm.
I was scared of what would happen if I did speak up and say no more, that we're not going to accept this. And so I had medicine. We had been on a roller coaster with my health and stuff. And then process of that, in between that, we still wanted one more baby. Like originally I wanted like a huge family, 6 kids, obviously, because I'm comfortable in chaos. Like,
Right.
and we could not get pregnant. We could not get pregnant. We had 2 miscarriages in between. And then we were actually getting ready to fill out the paperwork to do foster care with the intent to adopt. And I found out I was pregnant. So then um, I found out I was having a daughter, and I was like, no more. This is not going to keep happening. And so I put my butt in counseling, like intense counseling, and I stayed in that the whole time I was pregnant, and it was like a huge eye opener. Um, and in the midst of this, like my family's going through all of their major trauma too. And there was at one point where we all got pulled into the counseling office, and my mom got called out on her stuff. My dad got called out on his stuff. And my mom never stepped foot back into that counseling office with us. And she
Mm.
was like, no, I'm not doing this. And then it was like, okay, all right, well, I'm doing this. So we're going in different paths then.
Well, you were on a mission to break the generational mother-daughter cycle.
Yes, the moms in my family are not kind to their daughters in any way, shape, or form. And I never want to be that to my daughter. Not my son either. Um, but especially it's the daughters and the mom relationship. The moms are very envious of their daughters. They don't like the relationship between the daughter and the father. They're very jealous of that. Um, envy, greed, like all the things you can imagine.
And how old's your
And
daughter
on
now?
top of it, all of that side of the family, the women struggle with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, PTSD. Our whole family, all those women, including all of myself and my sisters, we've all been raped. So it's just a lot of building blocks. It makes sense why it's so crazy, but at the same time, it's like you got to choose something different.
Mm. The sad thing is that and that's why I'm very proud of you for choosing your daughter over what you already knew,
Yeah,
because anywhere along that line somebody else could have said enough is enough. There's enough patterns
yeah.
to say no more, but you
Hmm.
had the courage to do that.
Yeah.
So how old's your daughter?
She's 6 now, almost
Six.
7. She'll be
Okay.
7 in October.
Okay. And what's the dynamics with her cousins?
So she like all of my siblings, she knows them as aunts and uncles. Um, and so all of us kids are all close. We have very strong boundaries with my whole family. I don't force my kids to visit. I don't force my kids to be anywhere they don't want to be. And I don't ever talk about my family in front of my kids, my opinions. They don't ever hear me say anything about them. They've the only opinions that they have of them, they've formed on their own for things that they have seen.
Mhm,
And I don't wrong them for that. So if they prefer not to be around my family, really.
mhm.
And I'm not going to force that relationship for them. That's their decision.
So you're working on yourself, you're healing, you have your husband helping you, you have these um chronic ailments that you're also battling, but
Yeah.
you're still healing who you are.
Yes. Hmm.
So how how is it with your actual siblings who are still or were still kind of
So my
midst of
sister,
that?
the oldest of us, she actually got sober. She's been sober for 6 years now.
Good.
She came home. She has a relationship with her kids. Um, and she has done a lot of healing too. Um, I was always the black sheep of my family. Like if there is a black sheep label, it is me. I have never fit in on my dad's side. I have always stood out on my mom's side. I've always stood up for what's right over what works. Um, and so I feel like by me just diving in and working on me, it's kind of led this path for the rest of the sheep to like go towards and decide if they're going to go down or not. Whether my siblings choose to heal or not is their decision, but a lot of them are. And so the my main two siblings, my brother just actually left the state, and I was so freaking proud of him. He was so scared to go, and he's the baby of us technically, of us three. He was so scared to go, and I'm like, if you don't, I'll kill you myself. Like you gotta go.
Yeah.
And my sister, she is getting to a point where she is getting ready to like step into her truth and step into what's right for her. And she has established very good boundaries with my family and my parents. And she's not accepting, like, she's carried a lot of guilt because she was a hardcore addict. And really, the only thing that got my sister sober was that she died. She
Mm.
legit died. Her heart stopped, paramedics trying to resuscitate her, dead. For like, I think a good 5 minutes, she was
Wow.
dead, coded. And it was all it took one officer not willing to give up on my sister. And he had known her in and out of jail, overdoses. He's been on calls for her before, and he would not stop resuscitation. He was like, no, this is not her story. And that's the only thing that saved my sister. And she had a whole out of body thing, and she never used since then.
That's
And
awesome.
so she's really on her healing journey now and embracing that. And we're all okay finally. We're in an okay place.
Good.
So
Well, I love the progression that you are now stepping into your truth and into who you are. What would you say is a part of your journey that you have yet to touch on?
um there's many things. It's almost like we lived two separate lives growing up. We had the life that the public seen because my dad was a physician's assistant, and his side of the family was very Catholic. And then there was my mom's side that it was like our own little, like we weren't Italian, but they acted that way. It was our own little mob in a sense, like family get-togethers, everybody would beat the shit out of each other, go to jail, grandma would bake until they got home, everybody would sit down, and everything was fine. And that was just normal. So like there's so many things. Like I think just even talking about it out loud, like this is the very first time I have ever said any of this to anybody else other than my husband. Like the very first time, besides my sister, but she doesn't count because she's in it with me. So
Right. And how's it feel?
it's like this huge weight is gone. Like I said, we were living two different lives, and behind closed doors, it was hard and it was messy and it hurt all the time. Um, I was the girl labeled the slut in high school. I didn't know what love was, but what I did know of love, it was associated with sex. And we were taught, I mean, you think about it now, and it was probably grooming in a way. But like we were taught if you didn't have sex with a man, he wasn't gonna love you.
Mm.
And so like up until I met my husband, it was like a mission. It almost came about more about just trying to find somebody to tell me no over finding love at this point. Like, and nobody told me no until Austin. It was like, and every time I would have sex with somebody, it was just another empty, hurt void that I felt gross. And I was like, why do we do this? But then we keep doing it. And then Austin was like, we don't have to do this. Like, we can wait. And I was like, oh. okay. And it was, I don't know, it was different with him for the
Mhm.
first time ever. And so I was terrified to get pregnant. So I didn't have sex until I was like 17, but I was accused of being a slut from 14 on. And then at 17 is when it was like game on. And it was like, even now, like my mom will be like, well, you were just a slut in high school. And I'm like, yeah, what kid in high school who doesn't know what love is isn't going to go find love in other ways?
Mhm.
So I think that's one message I just really want to get out there is like those girls and guys that are out there like trying to find that void and fix it and heal it. There's so many other ways to do it. Like you're not wrong for how you heal, but there's better ways.
Absolutely. And you said something earlier how you didn't want to die, but your body did.
Yeah. And all emotionally, physically, mentally.
How does, because I've been around enough people who have either thought about or actually succeeded with their suicide.
Yeah.
How does someone go in that environment?
It's dark. It's so dark. It's so lonely. So for me, it was I had went through the trouble with the law with my boyfriend. I'd snuck out of the house and an Amber Alert was called because my parents immediately called the police and it was a whole big thing. And um, so with that, he was gone then. I knew he wasn't good for me. I knew I had to cut ties. He was gone. And even though it was bad and it was chaotic and he was not good to me, it was still safe and it was still love. And then that was gone. And then I was back at home and it was even worse because I had gotten in trouble and all the secrets were coming out that I was using drugs and drinking as much as I was drinking. I don't think my parents ever really realized how much they contributed to my addiction or how bad it actually had gotten until that point. Um, and so then it was a matter of like it was constant shame, it was constant guilt. I I begged God to kill me every single day from the time I was 16 till I was like 20. I just wanted to die. And then it was like from 21 until about 30, I had to do everything I could just to survive because I didn't really want to die. It's like we speak those things into existence. I really believe that now. Like,
Mhm.
but in high school, I got to a point I was so numb, just so numb. And sex wasn't making me feel anything anymore. The alcohol, it was not working. And then there was this big, I'm in trouble with the law and I got to get my shit together. And it just was painful. And it was like, I want to die. Like, I don't want to die, but I can't do this anymore. And so I did try killing myself in high school and it didn't work. And I was like, why is it my story to suffer in the past? Like, that's what I thought then. And then again, what it was as recently as in this last March. My body had just like my brother had gotten in a major accident. He ended up losing his leg, our 15-year-old brother. Um, and my body responded to that in a massive way. I got this huge flare up, rash, head to toe, blisters, like oozing, like it was awful. It was painful. And I was like, it itched and it burned. And the doctors were like, it's bad. We need steroids. We don't know exactly what's wrong, but things are definitely wrong. And my inflammation markers were off the charts. And it was winter, which my body hurts more in winter anyway. And I was grasping at straws. And I told my husband, I looked at him, I'm like, I don't want to leave my kids. They're young. I don't want them to like, this is what they think of me. I don't want to leave you, but I have no more fight left. Like I'm losing the will to fight. And so then that's when I sucked it up and I got a pain pump. um, I have been told for probably about 3 years that I needed one. But again, coming out of addiction, I was like, I don't want to be dependent on this. And it's not anything like I thought it was going to be. So that's good. But I was like, it was either I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to get a pain pump. And I got a pain pump. And then that gave me some control to really dive deeper. And then it led me to a friend that has an NLP coaching business. And she was like, listen, you need to go through it. Like don't even worry about under me. I don't care who you go through, but you need to do this. And I sat on that for a good solid year and a half of her telling me like every 3 months, Morgan, I know you need this. I know you need this. And then finally I came to that point where I'm like, I started seeing that there's more of a reason where this is coming from. My anxiety, my depression, the pain, there's got to be more. Like it's not just these surface level problems. There's something else going on. And then like I started reading about how trauma affects inflammation and autoimmune diseases in your body. And that was a whole rabbit hole. And another pivotal moment in my healing journey. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the NLP. And I went into it with, I am going to just go through it so I can work on healing me. And as I did it, I'm like, no, I'm going to be a guide to other people's healing journeys. Like, I want to coach people on how to get through this. Like, because if I had NLP like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have went through near as much as bullshit as I have. Like, and it teaches you how to own your stuff, the part you play, but also forgive along the way too. Like, it's wild.
It's a definite mix because we have to take ownership of our part.
Yeah.
But we have to forgive those that contributed their part. And we have to do that not because it's beneficial to them, but it heals
For
us.
yourself. Yeah.
Right?
Like, and I think people forget or maybe they don't realize when somebody talks about forgiveness, it literally has nothing to do with about the other person. You're forgiving yourself for the guilt that you hang on to in that situation. Like, this is the first year I've been able to openly talk about my Amber Alert situation without feeling overwhelming shame and guilt and just disgust with myself. And it's when you can forgive the people who've hurt you and you can forgive yourself to going through that situation, you get to release that toxic situation. Like, it's not a weight in you anymore. And that's like another little scar that gets to close up. Like, it's like you're opening the scar and you got to debride the scar. And it's like this, you're closing that scar. You get to let it go.
And have you done that? Like you mentioned that you were raped. You mentioned that the chaos of your, lineage of mother-daughter stuff. And also, your own, have you been able to forgive each step of that?
Every single one of them. I will say, like, even just a week, well, no, like 4 days ago, me and my mom did get into a situation where it escalated and I was screaming on it. I let her get me to that point where I was yelling back. And in those situations, it's not that I didn't forgive her for what happened. It's more of like the defense of like, you're backing me into a corner. I don't feel safe. I'm going to come back at you. That still has to heal. That's still there. It's very muchly there. It's a very much a work in progress. And the healing journey is something you're always going to be on. Like, you have to be able to recognize your triggers, heal your triggers, and move past those triggers. So, I mean, there's still things, but it's better. Like, and I have forgiven every single person.
And how has your body responded?
So we didn't have to do the second medicine for my pump. I have not had a flare up since I went through my NLP, which is the longest spurt that I haven't. And it's been about a month and my inflammation's just cool, calm, collected. So I'm living again. Like, I was not capable at the time of doing anything. I couldn't cook, I couldn't clean. I was just existing. And since I have done all of this work that has led me this far, I'm traveling again. I'm doing my photography again. I picked up my camera for the first time 2 months ago, and it's just spreading like wildfire with that. I'm cooking, I'm playing with my kids. Like, I'm here and I'm living. I'm not just existing anymore. And I've got control.
That's awesome. We have a friend who she does Thai massage and she does a bunch of other modalities. And she calls it, when you have the generational lineage like that, and we store it, she calls it issues in our tissues.
Yeah, I hear that.
And there's definite parts of your body where you can feel where you've stored that. And
Yeah.
when you release that, your physical DNA
It changes you.
transforms.
Yeah.
It's not woo, it's not this far out thing. It's
I
actual
know people at first, I think
science.
they initially when they hear that, they're like, oh, this is woohoo bullshit. Like, but if you go through it, you'll understand it. Because, like, for me, I carry a lot of pain in my hips, my pelvis, my back. I mean, sex was a very negative thing in my life. The first time I was molested by a cousin at 8 years old. And then from there, it snowballed into relationships I was in. The guys would rape me. Like, I was their property. And if I said no, they were going to get what they wanted anyway.
Mhm.
So where's all the pain? What did I go through? You're storing them.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see you thriving more now and smiling more and coming back into your own. Um, if you were, and I'm sure that there's people out there who are listening to this, and they can relate to what you've gone through.
Yeah.
If you were to impart some wisdom on getting help so that they can heal, what would you tell those who are still on the fence about what to do?
Just start talking. People will listen and you'll find what path you need to go. Everybody's healing journey is different. I think if I had a conversation with my younger self, I would find a coach. My therapist was great. You need somebody who can dive really deep. Like, you got to get deep into those, and you need somebody who can guide you through that. And you need somebody who is going to guide you, not make you think, and not try to control the situation, I guess is what I'm
Mhm.
saying.
Yeah.
Um, because as you go down, you think you're going down your healing journey for one thing, and there's 1,000 other ways your unconscious mind is going to take you.
Mhm.
And what you think the problem is not even the problem. But I think it all starts with recognizing that there's definitely something better than where you're at. And if you can realize that the situation you're in is not good and you want out, you can get yourself out. It's not easy, it's messy and it's hard and at times. But then you get to this point where I am and it's like, whatever you have to say about me, say it, because it's not my truth. You're saying it, but I don't have to accept it.
Mhm.
And so you get to decide if this is going to really hurt you and stay with you, or if you can let this go and move past it. You get a choice. And when you are in it deep, you don't really have that choice yet.
Mhm.
You're just surviving. So
Yeah,
speak out. Just
I think it's important to speak out and get it out there, and just like you said, just sharing what you did, you feel this relief and this weight.
yeah,
Um, I can tell you and anyone who's listening, the drugs aren't going to fix you, the alcohol's not going
yeah,
to fix you, the sex isn't going to fix you, the gambling's not going to
yeah.
fix you. You
It
may
never
just,
lasts. Like, yeah,
right.
for a little bit, it feels really awesome, but then it's gone. And you
Yeah,
wake up the next day and you're like, I need it again, and I need
yeah.
it again. And then it doesn't help eventually.
And I think it's important to, and I say this often, we don't get to choose the hand that's dealt to us, but we do
Yes,
get to choose how we play it. And if you play it right, every hand can be a winning hand.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's important to, you know, we all have a story, we all have crap, we all have
We all have
stuff.
experienced toxic something at some point, but you also have to be able to own your shit in that. And I think if if there's something else that people that are just starting their healing journey needs to know is for a long time, you're gonna blame the people around you. You're gonna blame your parents for putting you through the shit that they put you through. You're gonna blame the person who raped you for taking something that you didn't give permission to take. You're going to blame and you're going to hate and all of those things. And that's normal. That's okay. But at some point, you have to recognize that you played a part in every situation that's happened to you in some capacity. Did you deserve it? No. Do you have to accept it as your fault? No. But you did play a part. And like ownership in the healing journey is a big one. Like, I think that's one of the most freeing things, because once you own it, it has no power over you. So when
Right.
somebody tries to use it against you and they say, well, you did these things, you're right. I did do those things. And I was hurting at the time that I did those things. I don't have to justify that to you, but you are right. I did do those things.
Well, I think that's, when you look at any of those situations, any situation we're in like that, if we can understand that people are only coming to us with the level of their own toolbox and
Yeah.
understanding. Like
Yes.
you, in your family, you said it's generational that the mothers and the daughters have this toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because the mother taught the
Mothers and the
daughter,
daughters. Yes.
right?
And that's one thing I say it all the time. Like, and it was, I mean, Tony Robbins has said it, like, if you blame somebody for the bad, you also have to blame them for the good, because for every bad situation, they've also at some point been a part of the good too. So if you're going to blame, you have to blame for both. And you have to look at it as, whether it's your abuser or a toxic parent or whatever, they are only capable of what they are like what they know. So they only know what they know. They don't know what they don't know. And so if they don't know differently, how are they supposed to do different? Like,
Well, and if they're
they
not
can choose
healed,
to a capacity. They have to
right,
choose to heal. But if they're comfortable in that, what can
right.
you expect?
But
You
I mean, it's
know?
just like your mom. You tried to go to therapy. She said, nope, fuck this, because your therapist probably, called her out on her
Yeah.
shit. She's like, nope, I'm not ready for that mirror. I'm not doing that. And so there's no way that she can progress and be a role model for anything other than what it's like to live in toxic chaos.
Yeah.
And when we understand that those around us are imperfect as well,
Hmm.
they're getting through their own mess and their own shit with the tools that they have. And if they're not willing to do the work, how can you expect them to be as far as you are in your own journey?
Exactly.
Because you were
Yeah.
willing to do the work, they weren't,
Yeah.
you know. So I think that's and the grace and the forgiveness. I think it's important that we have that for those around us, but I think it's more important that we have it for ourselves.
Yes.
And though I've witnessed this way too many times, we will forgive everybody else,
Oh,
but then we hold on.
when it comes to free, oh,
Yeah.
I can full-heartedly say that I forgave the person that raped me way before I forgave myself for putting me there. I I have forgiven everybody who's ever hurt me way before I ever began to forgive myself. And the really beginning to forgive myself didn't start until I went through the NLP and was like, oh, and it took one of the coaches being like, the way you talk to yourself, would you talk to your daughter like that? Would you talk to a 6-year-old like that? And I'm like, no. So what
Yeah.
am I doing? Like, what is the purpose of that?
Well, I say this all the time. If we talked to others like we talk to ourselves, we wouldn't have any friends.
No. Oh no. No.
And that's a dynamic that is the hardest of the healing journey.
Yes, that is the hardest. That is, out of all of it, I think forgiving yourself for the things that have happened and the situations you've been through and all of that pain and hanging on to it and not starting sooner and all of those spirals, like that is the hardest point to get to. And then it's actually breaking through that door and changing it. That's really hard. But if you can get to that point, or when you get to that point, holy hell, it's almost like you open that door and all the good starts flooding in. Like like it's like you've been through all of the dark, so now the light is finally in. And you can be kind to yourself so the world can be kind to you.
I love that. I could talk to you for another 2 hours. It's been wonderful. As we wrap this up, I'm going to ask you, not everyone is self-aware as you were at the time that said,
Oh yeah.
fuck this, I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
So those that need the extra guidance and the extra, what would you say to that person? How can they break through
Like with addiction and stuff, is that what you're talking about? Or just
with their
in
pain, with
general?
their trauma, to start their own healing
Oh,
process? How, like, you got to a point where you just said, I'm going to take care of my own healing,
yeah.
but not everyone has that fortitude. So what would you
I think
tell
everybody has to get to a point where they're fed up, where they get tired of the same cycle. Um, if you stay comfortable, nothing's going to change. If you are willing to get uncomfortable, your whole life will change. If you're somebody struggling with addiction and you can't understand why you keep going back and why you keep going back, then that's when it's time to go deeper. Um, Anything that you're struggling with, that's when it's time to go deeper, because whatever you think the problem is isn't the actual problem. There's something a lot bigger underneath there. It's like an iceberg. Um, and so I think if you become aware, or when you become aware that this isn't working and you decide you want something different, then you need to lean into your people. And if you don't have the right people, you need to be willing to cut out people. I do
them?
not have, I only have one of the same friends that I started out with, because I had to change things. I had to change who I surrounded myself with. I had to change who I networked with, all of those. And at first I felt like I was a huge fraud. Like, these people are going to find out everything that I came from and kick me out of this circle. Like, but none of them did. And all of them accepted me with open arms and have always been like, we're going to the top together. Um, all it takes is you stepping up and stepping out of the bubble and recognizing that you want different.
I love that. And I'm going to ask you the one final question that I ask all my guests. You're part of my tribe and a warrior spirit. What does having a warrior spirit mean to Morgan?
It's not being a victim. You can go through these things and you can accept them and speak your truth and step into your truth, but it holds no weight against you. That's a warrior spirit. Like, you can accept that you've went through these traumatic bloodbaths of a life event. They hold no more weight.
I like that. Well, I appreciate your time tonight, and
Yeah.
glad that you're into your healing journey. I look forward to what 2024 brings for you and your family. And
Yes, I can't wait.
I'm grateful for you sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
Blessings. Have a great night.
You too.